Well, for those that don't know me, my name is Kev Mac. Going through the penitentiary and the county jail, I met a lot of guys from other neighborhoods that had a lot of knowledge of history from their neighborhood. And so I started my own website, which was maxpages.com/gangs, then later allhood.net, and then I went to allhoodpublishing.com. So that's who I am. I'm the owner and creator of all those websites and the magazine. When I came home from prison and I'm searching for gang information, there wasn't nothing there except for streetgangs.com. So that sparked my interest. I wanted to add to that.
Did you hear about the internet while you were in prison, or was that something you learned after you were released?
I learned it when I came home. I came home and my sister had a computer set up in my house. And she used to always be on the computer, so I was fascinated with it. I asked her, why you always on there? And she started explaining to me how to do Microsoft Word and how to go on the internet. And once I got on the internet, shit, it was like cocaine. I was sprung. And I wanted to do something in print for the guys in prison where they can read up on what's going on out here and something that they like, some ghetto stuff, and women, of course. And when you're locked up, you want literature, you want something to read, and you want to be in tune to what's going on in your community and abroad. So the magazine came to mind, and I didn't know how I was going to do it or if I was going to do it. Then I had a homeboy named Shawnee Mac, and Shawnee Mac came by after I mentioned the magazine to him and some of my homeboys. He came by and gave me a Don Diva and a Feds magazine. So I was like, oh shit, they got something like what I want to do. So that's really what was the last straw of the project. When I seen that, I was like, I could do a West Coast version and use street gangs, which was my niche.
So what are some of the neighborhoods that you've learned a lot about? What are some of the main ones?
Well, I learned a lot about the Harlem Crips and the hundreds, block Crip, and Santana block, definitely. Well, Santana was always looked at as like the #1 Crip gang in Compton. So that's huge right there. And they were surrounded by a lot of Pyrus. They're in the middle of a sea of Pyrus. So Santana block always got their respect. And they're very interesting history. They had a lot of big drug dealers from Santana. And just a lot of reputables, period. They produce a lot of reputables. I would like to know more about Venice Showline because they out by the sea, far west LA, and no Bloods nowhere in sight. So I'm just curious as to how they came about. Philip McCain takes credit for them, but I haven't sat down and really got it up out of him. And actually, Venice dudes are cool. A lot of them came to the table and said, they want to sit down. They want to tell the history. I just never got around to it. Serranos don't really want to share their information with a quote-unquote black dude. So a lot of members, a lot of young dudes, or even older people get at me, like the Sartell 13, Santa Monica, I think 17th Street, Venice Trece. Those are some of the ones that got at me, but it always stops. It leads to nowhere. Before I could get all the nitty-gritty, the big homie said we can't do it. So, East Coast Crip history. That's the one that I really want. Now, that's a difficult history to get because they have so many different sections, from First Street to 190, and then they had the SOS, the Samoans. They had a clique in San Bernardino, which I don't believe exists as part of East Coast no more. I think they were 1600 block. And then you got 78th Street East Coast that don't exist no more. I would like to know who started them and why they didn't make it as far as some of the other East Coast. Now the problem with getting East Coast history is, the biggest problem that I've run across is they were laced a little different from a lot of the other Blood and Crip sets because they don't really share their history from the beginning. Now, why that is, I can't really say, but a lot of them attributed to when they took the oath, they weren't going to share intel with the white folks. some people would think all East Coast are East Side Crips or the East Side Crips are all East Coast. But those dudes were older. A lot of those dudes didn't turn. They quit during the transition. And then like even the term East Coast Crip, that's been debated. Was it 75, 76, 78, 79, maybe even 80? But I think the oldest newspaper article I found that actually said East Coast Crip was in 79, I believe.
Have you figured out which of the East Coast sets was the first one?
That's tricky too, because 6 Deuce like to take claim as being the first. 6'9" is, they're adamant about being first. But 6 Deuce being the first neighborhood Crip on the east side, I don't know how that plays into who really was first, but 6'9" was actually the biggest from what I hear, but 6 Deuce was the hardest. I've been digging in Swan history for a long time, but the problem with Swans is almost like East Coast, but you get a lot of different stories. You get different stories of the hand sign or where the name came from, and it's never consistent. Now, I never heard Swans was Crips per se as Crip gang, but a lot of their members were Crips for sure. A lot of them. East Side Crips and Castle Crips, Main Street Crips. And, you know, I always wondered, MSB, Mad Swan Bloods, was that a part of Main Street Boys? So it makes sense. It definitely makes sense. The best answer I've been given for the Swan name comes from their originals. Used to go to the park and jump off a diving board. And they would call it the Swan Dive. And those dudes, Raymond Washington wasn't too friendly with those dudes, so that's where the separation came from. And supposedly that's where the name came from. I had an issue with the bounty hunters. Now the bounty hunters, you know, they didn't really want to talk. And same with the Grape Streets. I talked to, I think Daoud Sherrill, Daoud. And other Grapes didn't want to speak up. So when the Watts issue came out, the bounty hunters was pissed. They was real pissed. They was trying to undermine me every which way possible. They thought I was a white guy, so one dude was calling me, talking about you don't know nothing about the ghetto and you got a college education. I don't have a college education, but everything he was saying he was wrong about. You know, my thing is this. I don't really want to speak on nobody else's history, but when somebody from that neighborhood that's respected give me your history and lace me properly, I feel like I can speak on your neighborhood. I mean, I got the blessing of one of your homeboys, so if you don't want to speak up or you find out about it later, don't blame me.
I joined the neighborhood gang and I was involved in gang fights. Matter of fact, our neighborhood was the first drive-by that happened, but it's not like they do it now. They just shoot anybody.
7.5 years I was gone, the world had really changed.
Not so much the world, the Crip world as we knew it, because that's what taking over South Central, the Crip world and Bloods, as we knew it.